All right, crypto market update. Looks like we had a breakdown from this area, so no choppy bounce at this area. Heading towards the 3K area, and obviously if 3K breaks, then we're in the twos, right? So a little bit of a bear pennant right here. So right now, nothing as far as my own personal strategy and plan is concerned. Nothing has changed for me. I'm still buying. I have my next block of bids in through here between the 2 and 3K area, with some at the 3K area in case we don't break down below. If we ended up hitting that 3K, then there's support here, resistance, so on and so forth. So this is my next block of Bitcoin purchases. Order stacked down. And what I did with the Bitcoin that I bought in the higher block up here, I stacked those on some altcoins on the alt BTC charts. Now, here's something interesting with that particular strategy. So you know how last year, when basically last year when people were flipping their altcoins into Bitcoin, they were paying tax gains, and a lot of people didn't even realize that they had to pay tax gains, and that I think that wiped out a lot of accounts after the fact. It was the end of December. Well, this year we have the inverse. We have the reverse, right? So I bought, obviously I jumped the gun and started buying some Bitcoin too soon. But my overall bigger plan was, I didn't matter how low it would drop, that my plan was is I just stack a bunch of buy orders, and that the higher Bitcoin I have, I'll flip into altcoins lower on the books. Now, the interesting thing with that as we move into 2019 is if I do end up getting a bunch of really low fills on altcoins, that Bitcoin to altcoin conversion will be a tax loss on the books at the end of the year. And I can hold those coins into 2019 and defer the tax into the following year. So basically it'll allow me to, if I do get any fills with those Bitcoins, it'll allow me to also harvest some more tax while at the same time loading up on some really degenerately cheap altcoins, right? So that's my plan. Still waiting. Maybe it goes down to the 2K area. Prices on a lot of things, Ethereum and so have become really, really degenerate. So we have double-digit Ethereum. We have, Zcash that's almost at $50, almost a full retrace. In fact, these were areas that we once fantasized over, like, oh, imagine if the price ever got down that low and had a full retrace. And I was there's a part of me that was kind of skeptical that we'd go down that low, but now it's happening. So for me, I'm sticking to my guns. Obviously, it's it requires it requires a lot of control of emotions and so on and so forth. It's not a strategy or plan for the faint of heart. But if we look back in a few years from now, regardless of where the bottom is, I don't know where the bottom's going to be, but regardless of where it is, I want to look back on these candles and ask myself, what was I doing? Where was I when the market was completely falling apart to shreds, right? And now we definitely have a pinch on market sentiment, right? It seems like the lower it goes, the more crushed market sentiment is. And I'm personally, I'm fine with the risk. I'm fine with going hard, and if it goes all the way down, going all in to crypto on my trading accounts. But that's just me, right? That you have to kind of, if that sort of thing causes you great emotional distress or whatnot, if it's gonna ruin the quality of one's life to apply strategy like that, then that's not a strategy for the faint of heart. I'm sticking to my plan and my guns for accumulation. And so it's very simple. The lower it goes, the more I'm going to buy, and that's it. Would you ever put in more money if you go all in on trading account and it goes much lower? Well, here's the thing. Let's say my hypothesis, let's just say this. And again, this is what I'm doing right now is considered a very, very high risk to reward move. It's, for trading and investment standards, it's considered being extremely bold, right? Like if you were to take if you had like a meter to measure how bold it is, this would be on like extreme parabolic bold. I mean, no one's really doing this as far as, out there and so on and so forth, right? So this is a very, very bold strategy. I've been extremely conservative all year, and now I'm pressing the gas hard, and I'm sticking to my plan, and I'm just going to buy as much. When all this blows over, I'm just going to see how much crypto I end up with, and that's it, right? So, in relation to your question, let's just say let's take the worst case scenario, right? So this is like the biggest risk for me on the table. So let's say that it blasts past 3K, blasts past 2K, and then you end up all the way down to, down here. Let's just say this would be like the worst case scenario. This would be Bitcoin dropping lower than it's ever dropped in its entire history. And you never know. It's possible. Anything's possible, right? So let's just say Bitcoin drops 93%. All these fills and all these bids get destroyed, right? So what do I do? Well, once we hit this area, then I capitulate, and the whole market will bounce back in my face. And no, I'm just joking. No, if we get to this area, if we do get to this area, so I'm thinking of mapping out. Not say that's going to happen, but obviously I want to map out the worst case scenario. My plan is I do actually have a bunch of Bitcoin holdings, long-term Bitcoin holdings, and if it did a full retrace, obviously there wouldn't be much tax gains on those long-term Bitcoin holdings that I managed to keep, because I do have a simple rule. I never want to be all out of Bitcoin, no matter how high the price goes. Bitcoin could go to 100K and I'll certainly sell some, but I'm never going to sell them all. I'm always going to have a stash of Bitcoin, a core stash of Bitcoin that I'm going to have throughout the years, no matter what. And I don't think I'll ever be all out of Bitcoin unless it, completely dies or whatever, then, so on and so forth, then so be it. But if the BTC Satoshi prices on my favorite stash, like let's just say, things get so bad that this is in like triple digit Satoshis or whatever, I'm sticking with my plan. I'm sticking with my strategy. I will probably take some of my longer term stash, maybe, a quarter of them of BTC. I won't have to pay any gains for converting that, and I'm going to continue my accumulation. So that's just what I'm doing. It's a very bold, high risk, and it's a very bold strategy, right? But the way I see it is the markets are extremely scared. We could go lower. That's fine. But since we're happen to be dropping straight down, I'm personally pressing the gas. Now that's may not be the best strategy or the smartest strategy. If one can time the exact bottom and buy big at the exact bottom or whatever, then obviously that would be a better strategy, right? But we don't know where the bottom is going to be. That's the thing. It could end up bouncing off 3K. Maybe it bounces lower. Maybe it bounces here. We'll only know in hindsight. Hindsight's 2020. But all I know is that, this has kind of been bigger picture plan. This has kind of been my plan for a long time. I always told myself if we capitulated hard and broke down, that I would just start buying, right? Another way of doing that, if one doesn't want to jump into the fire in these vertical red candles, is one could wait for a sideways range to establish itself, right? One could wait for that. Outside of Zeek and XTZ, what other alts would you buy at lower prices? Well, if Ethereum ends up going lower, then it's certainly going to be on my radar. I'm going to I'll probably end up buying a bunch of Ethereum if it drops any lower. Like if we ended up with, let's just say, again, well, you know, things can be the worst case scenario or the best case scenario depending on how you look at things, depending on what your goals are, your ultimate goals are. But let's just play with this possibility. So let's just say worst case scenario or best case scenario for Ethereum is, let's say it does a full, so it had a, so you never know, right? So this was like the all-time, this is the previous all-time high breakout right here. So I'm not buying Ethereum at this current level. I'm sticking to the two markets that I've decided I want to accumulate. However, there will come a point where if Ethereum goes low enough that, you know, I'll have no choice but to buy a sizable position of Ethereum as well as an investment. You know, so if it ever did come down to the $20 range, I'll certainly be a buyer. I'll load up if it wants to go do a 100% full retrace all the way back to the all-time high breakout, then I will be a buyer, and then that's it. So another way or approach, if one wants to take a much more conservative approach, is one could wait for a clear accumulation range to establish. So let's say, who knows where it is, maybe the range ends up getting established here. You know, one can wait for a range to be established, or if it goes lower, maybe the range gets established here, right? Now the good news in all of this is we're quickly accelerating the market cycle. We're in the process of speeding up the market cycle. Now we might have to chop around for another year or 2019. Who knows what 2019 will be like, if it'll be a fast recovery. Like there's two types of recoveries that I've seen in general. One is the slow grind, you know, sideways accumulation recovery. And then sometimes I've seen the fast vertical recovery. Let me just show you an example. So you had like Ethereum that sometimes you end up with these kind of recoveries. It's two types of plays. You see this more often in altcoins than in Bitcoin. But if you'll notice here, like on the BTC chart, Ethereum was bleeding out, bleeding out, bleeding out, bleeding out. And then all of a sudden, like there wasn't any sideways accumulation. It's just V-bottom and popped right back up and into the moon, right? So that's another possibility. I'm not necessarily, and we've seen that before. Whereas here it was like kind of more sideways, right? This is a little slower. So it might end up, so you had this bear channel and it broke out and higher lows. So either one of those two possibilities. But it's possible that Bitcoin ends up chopping around going sideways. So we're only going to know after the fact. With the slow breakdown, don't you kind of expect a slow recovery fast? Well, I mean, breakdowns seem slow when they're in them. But, you know, I mean, how long did it take for this to break down? Right, let's count how many weeks. Let's see. So here's a value investor who dropped 18 million and watched, you know, 74% of it wither away. And then he capitulated the bomb. No, then he held it, and it made hell of a lot more than that. You know, obviously he seemed like a genius when it was at 20,000. So that 30,000 Bitcoin at 20,000. I don't know how he manages his portfolio, if he took profit or anything like that. I don't know all those finer details. But I do know that at the highs, those 30,000 Bitcoin were worth $600 million, right? And yeah, and he got laughed out of town. You know, everyone's laughing. And he made like a 10 when it was at In 2015, he made a prediction saying Bitcoin would hit 10K when it was triple digits, right? So that was actually one of the best predictions I've seen on Bitcoin. It obviously went double beyond that. So anyways, at the high 600 million, right? 18 million into 600 million. It's not bad. So this is someone who, you know, has a pretty good track record and was laughed at, and obviously he could have bought way more and made even more money, right? So there's a compounding effect. If you'd taken that same 18 million and bought it down here, then, you know, it would have been worth billions, right? Okay, someone's saying he bought 40,000 Bitcoins at 632. So obviously the best strategy and plan is if you can time the exact bottom and then go all in, or put your 18 mil in or whatever at the exact bottom, then that's obviously the absolute best strategy, right? But, you know, can one time the exact bottom, right? Is it that simple? Is it that easy, right? So for the most part, I just average in, I average down, and he bought it all OTC, right? So he wasn't buying it on exchanges and all that stuff. So this is why, as we get closer to completing this bear market cycle, that my scope is moving into the year 2020 to 2021, right? This is where my vision is now. And if things get a little bit choppy and sideways over the next year, then that's fine, right? I will be patient, because right now the market cap on everything, I think, is, let me just look at the market cap, is 104 billion, right? We almost hit $1 trillion. So we hit maybe 800 billion or something like that. I think the market cap of gold, if I'm not mistaken, is a $10 trillion market cap. Let me see. $7.8 trillion market cap. I personally believe that once all these investment products are created and everything is streamlined and fully mainstream, I'm working on a timeline. I personally believe that crypto will be a multi-trillion-dollar market cap. And that's when I'm going to think about doing hard cash outs and basically, you know, just kind of getting out of the game entirely, right? The next time we hit another parabola, if we do hit the all-time high, if we hit another parabola, obviously nothing's guaranteed. That's when I'm going to do like a sayonara cash out. I'll always have some crypto, but, you know, that's when I'll just complete. I don't necessarily think or know if we'll have another market cycle, or if we did after that, maybe it takes a long time. Maybe it turns into, a 10-year recovery or something like that, right? So what I'm not going to do in the next parabola is I'm not going to be, trading the bounces and gunning to reaccumulate and all that kind of stuff. I'll probably cash out a ton of money, maybe even like 50% of my portfolio, keep the rest, pay a crap ton of tax, and then that's it. And obviously, maybe if it came down to degenerate levels, I might reconsider buying some stuff again, but just moving more into like the slower investor category versus having to do the constant juggling and constant hustling on every single little move, right? So that's my ultimate, one could say, 5-year plan. This is what I'm thinking of right now. I'm in a 5-year plan. And like I said before, the thing that the thing I took away the most in this cycle, in this market cycle, the thing that I took away the most is that I think the people who probably made the most money in this whole cycle were the ones who, invested heavy and then cashed out at the highs. Charlie Lee is one of those people, right? I think Charlie Lee probably outperformed many people in that last cycle. A lot of people criticize him. I want to give the man a trophy. I think that was like so well played. I seriously got to send him a trophy in the mail. I mean, this guy, I was watching him. He was averaging down below $4 on Litecoin. Okay, and he was going in heavy. And what price did he sell at? 350. He sold above 300. He's like, I'm all out. And then he gave a warning. He's like, if you seriously love Litecoin and crypto, well, just make sure that you love it at $20. And here we are, $22, right? And if he ends up buying back in at $20, I'm gonna laugh really hard. So this is he definitely like invested in this like a boss. So he was an investor, not a trader, but he had the trader's instinct. He knew when to get out, and he cashed out his chips, and he donated a lot of money to the foundation and stuff like that. But I just, I think that was an absolute brilliant play, right? It was just an absolute brilliant play. And he's lived through it, right? It wasn't his first rodeo, so he recognized it. He probably bag held through the first drop. He probably didn't cash out on the first drop, and maybe wisened up and then cashed out hard in the second. But remember when Litecoin, everyone is saying is dead. It was a piece of crap. It was a rock. Even I threw some salt at it. Even Ripple, so on and so forth. So in my opinion, that's like the grand slam strategy that I'm getting for in the next cycle. So I'm going hard at the lows. Whatever I manage to accumulate, I'm going to hold it for a few years. When I see the next parabola, I'm going to cash out profit along the way, just as good risk management at certain price points. I have price points in mind where I'd like to cash out. That's what I love about Tezos being self-accumulating. I can cash some out without tapping into my principal, right? So at this point in the game, I'm actually kind of playing a game where I'm going to see just how much XTZ and how much ZEC I end up having, right? Aren't taxes complicated for baking Tezos? Yeah, one's gonna have to pay tax as income tax depending on your jurisdiction, but if I have to pay a bit of money on tax when it's at the lows, I'm certainly not going to be selling it at the lows to pay tax. I'll just pay the tax out of my bank account for whatever I accumulate, right? It's got to hit a certain price point. And I only started baking Tezos like recently, and I haven't even baked all my Tezos yet because I've been buying more. And when this all blows over, I'll probably have doubled my entire Tezos position size or more. So I have to wait for an entire new baking cycle to kick in. So the new baking cycle will probably only kick in 2019. So really, the majority of my tax issues around Tezos is pretty much 2019's problem, right? Like I'm not gonna have to pay a lot of tax just for like a month of baking or whatever, right? Especially if the price is low, right? So it's not gonna be a big deal. And then in 2019, I have a whole entire year for it to self-accumulate before I have to think about worrying taxes. So the tax problem for me for Tezos is like a problem for 2020. Well, by that time, that's when I'm gonna want to sell a bunch, probably what I've accumulated for all of 2019, and then sell that at let's say at a higher rate, and then pay off the tax or whatnot, right? So that's my plan. That's my bigger picture goal, right? Especially if like over the next year, if we do have a lot of sideways chop accumulation, then it might be a very, very tight range, and it might not actually be the best type of market conditions to trade unless we get some nice little solid alt seasons. But I just remember 2015 was a really great year for investing. Best year to be an investor. Best time to be an investor. Absolute shitty year for trading. Right? 2016 for trading got a lot better. 2016 was definitely a good year for trading. 17 was an absolute amazing year for trading, probably the best year for trading that I've ever seen. There was lots of volatility, lots of market action, right? First half of 2018 was very good for trading. This chunk here for me wasn't so good for trading. And now I'm kind of in a hybrid mode of trader / investment. Obviously, there's going to be some money that I siphon off and lock in on my trading accounts when we do hit a bottom and hit some counterforce. But a big chunk, maybe even I'd say 70% of what I had in my trading accounts will end up just investment wise, will just all go towards longer term investment just to pack my bags up. Pack them up full of coins. And that's it. That's my goal. That's my ultimate goal. And obviously, with this goal, caveat, nothing's guaranteed. Just because I have this plan and this longer term goal, this bigger vision doesn't necessarily mean anything's guaranteed. One must always play with risk capital that they could afford to lose. Crypto's still experimental and risky and edgy. But it's, for me, I'm comfortable with that risk. It's always been risky and edgy. I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for crypto. And so, I'm comfortable with that. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being a crypto maximalist as prices keep dropping lower. So that's just me. Very simple two-dimensional strategy. There's a lot that can happen in that. It doesn't necessarily mean people have to follow my strategy. Maybe you want to trade. There's some smaller time frame volatility. If one wants to trade smaller time frame volatility, there's still some good possible trades here along the way. But I'm just thinking of the bigger picture. That's my goal. So lower it goes, the more crypto I want. It's very, very simple strategy. And the lower it goes and the more crushed market sentiment is, the more bullish I'm going to become, the more positive and optimistic I shall become on crypto. Right? Fundamentals haven't changed. It's the thing. Nothing has changed in the fundamentals of crypto. Right? The industry is not dying. Market sentiment will lead us to believe it's dying. And, people feel very crushed and defeated by this. But it's also probably because they didn't really account for the worst case scenario. Right? What's the worst case scenario? As much as I was skeptical about getting to these lower prices, I still always accounted that anything is possible and we could see full retraces, and to make sure I have emergency reserves in my trading accounts just for that, and so on and so forth, right? So that's it. We'll see how this plays out. We'll see when we do find a bottom. Now, one exercise I actually wanted to point out that I think would be a really cool exercise for everybody is, if you do have a trading journal, over the next week or so, over the next few days, over the next couple weeks, write down how you feel. Write down your thoughts, write down market sentiment, your emotions, all of that stuff. If you feel really emotional, write all of that down. Keep a record for your own learning, for your own education. Keep a record of all of this, and market sentiment and price and all of this, and then come back to it in a few years and see what the results are, right? If there's one thing I could have done differently, I have memories and stuff, but I would have loved to have, had more. I did have a trading journal, but I didn't necessarily write in it every day and so on and so forth. I would have loved to have more on market sentiment and more on I didn't feel bad at all in 2015. This is the twisted thing. I actually felt really good in 2015. I was feeling FOMO. This is what I was feeling in 2015. I was saying, in 2015, my main sentiment, my personal sentiment in 2015, and I kid you not, my personal sentiment in 2015 was, please give me lots of time to, get more Bitcoin this year. I always had this the feeling of anxiety that I had in 2015 was that the market would take off before I got enough Bitcoin, before I managed to accumulate enough Bitcoin. And I actually feel it was a real blessing to have 11 months of this. And that sounds kind of twisted, and some people might say, "Oh yeah, right." No, I'm dead serious. Like, that was my goal. Like, I was FOMOing into Bitcoin so hard. That's why I went full time into it. And it's so messed up and it's so twisted. And yes, did I buy Bitcoin in 2014 and have some drawdowns? Yeah, of course. I think my average price from 2014 with my 2014 Bitcoin was $500 Canadian. Interesting thing is the Canadian and US prices were on parity that year, right? So I was able to buy with Canadian dollars. I was able to buy US dollar prices, which kind of gave me like a bit of an edge, because in 2015, what ended up happening was the American dollar gained over the Canadian dollar by about 30%, right? So anyways, so I was happy that it lasted 11 months, and then it was a very epic breakdown. Obviously the past isn't indicative of the future, but I'm looking at the industry as a whole. Is the industry still alive? Is there still innovation being created in the space? Yes. Have we reached the technological capacity of Bitcoin and blockchain? No. Have we reached market saturation of all the participants in the world that could possibly ever want to get involved in Bitcoin or crypto? I don't believe so. We have it's a big world. We have 7 billion people. I doubt we even have 100 million users. Is there a lot more money that can come in once investment grade products are created, fully insured? Obviously. And I know people are so pessimistic that's kind of like, institutional money coming in is kind of a meme right now, right? Because it's really hot and trendy to troll crypto and hate on crypto and like, oh, the this and this and that. But the thing is that no one ever said institutional money was going to buy everyone's bags up here. They wouldn't be smart money if they did, would they? Right? There was a lot of hedge funds that were created up here. Maybe like Silicon Valley types that had a lot of money at their disposal and started buying up cheap ICOs and pre-sales and stuff. And I met a lot of hedge funds when we were in San Francisco. I met a lot of these investors and hedge funds and stuff. And a lot of them probably got wrecked. I think a bunch of them might have even closed up shop, capitulated, closed up their funds. I actually saw some news that they closed up their funds. But the real smart money would be starting funds at the lows. This is where the real smart money would come in, not at the highs. So even if those people had money, doesn't necessarily mean they were the smart money. Maybe they made a lot of money, they flipped a business or something. It doesn't mean that they made it through trading or investing, right? And it doesn't mean that institutions can't lose money too. I'm sure there's some drawdowns on people's books overall, even in the stock market happening right now, right? But if one wanted to start a fund to try to outperform all the other funds, what better time to buy than when everything is bleeding and dropping, the rug's pulled out and flying into the gutter? What better time to load up on stuff from a risk to reward standpoint if one were to create a large hedge fund or something? That's just my opinion. But that's it. So I'm turning into a crypto maximalist again. And again, I'm just doing this with money that I had sitting in my trading accounts all year, mostly in fiat for most of the year. And it used to be for 2015 and 2016, it used to be that the majority of my crypto was held offline in cold storage, right? And then in 2017, I had to change that mixture, and I had to keep a lot more on the exchanges. And then when things went parabolic, I had to keep a lot more on the exchanges. And strategizing around that was actually a little bit complicated because I really had to think about it. It's like, okay, well, there's a lot of counterparty risk and it is a lot of money, but there's the drawdowns if I don't sell. And then I had to figure out, okay, well, how much does one siphon out of the markets, diversify into other stuff? How much Bitcoin do I want to keep as an investment that I just don't want to sell, period? Even if I do know the markets crash, would I feel comfortable in being all out of Bitcoin? And obviously, no. There's a certain, number that I always want to kind of have. And how many exchanges do I put money on, right? I got to mix it up. If you put it all in one exchange and it gets hacked, then your trading account, your trading capital is completely wiped out of the game. So you spread it out amongst different exchanges, maybe 3 or 4, just to mitigate the risk. Obviously, if any of them got hacked, it would be a massive blow, but wouldn't wipe you out of the game. And then I had to think about Tether. There's all this Tether FUD, and it's like, oh, well, Bitrex, which is one of the main one of the exchanges I was trading on. It's like, well, they don't have USD. Now they have USD. They're a little too late. So my Bitrex account was 100% Tether when there was like extreme Tether FUD. So like, I can look back in hindsight and be like, oh yeah, it was so easy, but it really wasn't, right? Like I had conviction that we were going into a bear trend. I stuck to my guns despite market sentiment. There was no guarantees that I was right? I could have been wrong. We're on the bleeding edge. Maybe it did show, what if it did shoot up to 100K and Parabolic Trav was right or whatever? That is certainly possible, right? We've seen crazier things. But I stuck to my plan. I stuck to my guns, right? And did I do everything absolutely perfect in the highs? No, I didn't do everything perfect. Some stuff I sold too soon into cash. That's fine. There might have been some opportunity cost or some trades that I had nailed absolute perfect, and there were some that I sold a little too soon in the highs. But I still had the right idea, the overall greater market cycle. Right? It's not always easy to try to nail everything absolute perfectly or anything like that, right? So sometimes you go with good enough as long as one has the right concept and principle. Now this is like yin and yang. Now we are in the opposite. Now it's like nice circle of life, right? Yin and yang right here. Now we're in the gutter, and now I'm doing the opposite of what I did last year. Am I nailing the bottoms? Am I not having drawdowns right now in my cost averaging and my buying? Did I maybe get a little bit too eager and buy a little bit too soon? Yeah, I did. Right? But am I sticking to my guns, sticking to my plans? Yes. And I'm doing the complete opposite that I did in the highs. And I'm going to basically siphon off most of it into my longer term trading accounts. Not trading accounts, sorry, cold storage. And I'm going to accumulate as aggressively as I can, right? A more sane approach should be a slow accumulation, but I love just diving in front of capitulation. That's just me. I like doing it. So a lot of people are talking about shorts. So I think maybe shorts are going parabolic here. Let's see. Looks like Bitcoin shorts have broken the all-time highs, right? Very interesting. So all-time lows for 2018, my bad. All-time highs on shorts. Short. Looks good to me. Let's just keep those spiking up. Keep the shorts high. And then I noticed someone posted Ethereum shorts. We're going absolute nuts. All-time high parabolic. I said this would be a shorter update. I never give shorter updates, do I? I don't even think I know how anymore. And then all-time high shorts on Ethereum. Everyone wants to short that double-digit Ethereum. I'm just playing the waiting game, right? It keeps going lower. That's fine. I'm just gonna keep buying. That's me, honestly. I'm doing this strategy and going hard because I'm comfortable with the risk and I'm emotionally okay with this. right? This market could dump to 1,000. It's not going to crack me. You know, I'm sticking with my guns. But that's me, right? I've been at this game for a while. If you're new, you might not be able to handle that kind of emotional pressure, right? So you might have to take a more conservative approach. Chris has been at this game for a long time as well, and he's taking a more conservative approach. And I commend him for it because, you know, he's doing all right now. He's not experiencing too many drawdowns, right? So I'm just doing what's right for me. Let's see. How long can shorts keep going up? Well, they'll keep going up until they have to close. But guess what? Here's the thing with shorts. They can't go up forever because eventually they have to close. They're paying fees every day. I bet you the fees for the cost of borrowing will be high. Does anybody got any quick stats on what the cost of borrowing is for Ethereum? Because that will be an interesting metric too. Because oftentimes what happens when the markets are out of balance and everyone wants to borrow coins, it's 1% to borrow Ethereum right now. 1% daily. Serious? Wow. So anyways, unless they're borrowing coin. Okay, if that's correct, apparently people are borrowing coins and paying 1% a day to be able to short Ethereum at double digits. How long is that going to last? How long is someone going to pay 1% a day on Ethereum shorts? Obviously, that's not sustainable, right? Just the fees alone is going to completely eat into their capital, let alone the risk. Obviously, if one wants a cheaper way of shorting, BitMEX offers cheaper. Anyways, so that's interesting. So we'll see this all-time high Ethereum for shorts. So this is like pretty much and where were shorts in January, December, January. About like let's look at the Ethereum price here. I know Ethereum took a little longer to break down. Its all-time high was on January 14th. January 14th. Okay, so there was a little spike in shorts. There obviously were some people shorting, but compared to where we're at now, right? It's like why weren't shorts going all-time highs when Ethereum was at $1,400? Right? I mean, look at the risk reward on that. $1,400. No one wanted to short it. So it's in the gutter. And now Ethereum's in double digits. Everyone wants to short it. You know, my grandmother's shorting Ethereum. What about if Nasdaq futures approved next year, but no ETF for backed approval in 2019? That would cause lower. I think backed is a go. I don't know if it was officially approved or not, but so anyways, so what you're saying, someone's saying Coinbase just listed 4 new assets: Civic, Loom, DNT, Mana. Well, I have some of those. They just listed them. I know they wrote an article today. Okay, so I guess Civic, DNT, Loom, and Mana. I have CVC and I have some Mana that I bought when I was hunting for some of the sideways stuff. Not huge positions or anything, but if we do get any big spikes, I'll definitely be selling into them. It's got to be a bigger spike than this though. So, so that's an interesting little spike. And then let's look at Mana. Geez. It spiked before they even officially listed it. They start spiking 1, 2, 3. Actually, I didn't even notice that. It actually hit a new high This is actually one of those when I was buying stuff that was sideways, and I talked about this in an update. This is one of my things, Decentraland. I'd actually bought it here, and then it popped, and then almost did a full retrace. But this one's actually not performing too bad, considering compared to other things. So let's see if this has a bigger spike up or not. Anyways, so I'll sell into those spikes if we get something serious. I'm not gonna. This isn't enough to whet my appetite. I mean, you know, 10%, whatever. That's not enough to whet my appetite. But if we broke, if we took out this high, and if we pulled off something like what Factom did, sure as hell, I'll be selling that stuff. You know, like if we popped off something like that, or even anything remotely close to that. There's something else that kind of popped off a little bit as well. It wasn't Factom, it was... It was Waves. So even though Waves didn't go up as high, if we ended up with a nice little spike like what Waves had, like I had actually posted something in the room that I thought this was a good take profit zone for at least some initial take profit, right? Lined up with an extension, so on and so forth. So if I see any spikes up like this, I will be locking that in. Probably into Bitcoin. I'll just lock it into Bitcoin. Since the price of Bitcoin is low enough, I don't have to put into dollars. So we'll see. We'll see. Any alts that I have, anytime we get a spike or some popcorn, I'll be selling. I'm just being patient right now. And they also had a post where they showed a list of the coins that they were considering listing, and Tezos is on that list. Surprise, surprise. I still stick by my guns that I think by the time a few years rolls by and the ecosystem grows, that I think it'll get listed on pretty much most exchanges, and it won't have to pay for any exchange listing fees, right? It's all based on ecosystem growth. Ethereum never had to pay any listing fees, right? It just kept getting listed everywhere because the ecosystem just kept growing and growing and growing into a behemoth, right? So that's the potential that I see with Tezos, which is why I've gone hard on accumulating, why I'm still going hard on accumulating it. So, and obviously that's a big risk. It's kind of the risk that I'm calculating is, you know, would I risk? And I'm not saying there's no guarantee, you know, there's absolutely no guarantees that this is going to come to fruition. I mean, it could go to zero, or something could happen or whatever, and then I lose it all, right? But the way I see it personally, and my calculations and what I'm gunning for is, you know, am I willing to risk 6 figures now to make 8 figures in a few years off of this one investment? We shall see. We shall see if that'll bear any fruit or not, or if something just a little bit more moderate comes out of it. Maybe it doesn't end up that high. But for me, even though if it went to zero and if I lost everything, it would certainly be a large blow to my portfolio for sure. But it's the risk that I'm personally willing to take, because I'm also, you know, that to me would be a next level for me, right? So that's what I'm gunning for. Trying to go for that absolute grand slam. That's just me. So, do you have a general allocation target for Bitcoin versus... So I'll have to, once this all blows over, I'm going to have to calculate all of that. I haven't been doing that right now because I don't know where the bottom's going to be, right? I don't know how many fills I'm going to get on this stuff and so on and so forth. So when the market's dumping and kind of volatile, that percentage is shifting. But my goal, though, if we do hit the lower levels, is my trading accounts will be 100% crypto. So, and a big chunk of that is going to be Tezos, Zcash, and Bitcoin. So once that all blows over, I'll have a better idea of exact percentages, what I have. Looks like waves might actually make another little wave up. No pun intended. You know, something to watch here. All right, folks. I think that's it. So and also, you know, as far as Tezos getting listed on Coinbase, I don't give a shit about Mickey Mouse Coinbase pumps. You know, I'm not in this for a quick flip. You know, it's like I just don't care about that, right? The only reason that's of any interest to me is I know that it's a major exchange and it's a gateway exchange. When a lot of new users come in, especially in the States, they often go to Coinbase. If Tezos happens to be one of the options that they could purchase, you know, that's just more firepower. That's more liquidity. It's more firepower for that particular investment. So that's why I'm into it. A lot of people are into the exchange listings because they just want the quick pump, the quick flip. I don't really care about that. You know, I'm still gunning for the big plays here. So. That said, obviously, if Mana or any of those things, if we do have some fast spikes over this exchange listing, which the exchange listing spikes have been getting weaker and weaker, obviously, as market sentiment drops. You know, obviously to manage risk and stuff, I'll take some off the table if anything pops, just to kind of reshuffle things around. So, and then I might take that profit in BTC and maybe I'll keep it in BTC. Maybe I'll flip it into something else. Maybe I'll find something else that didn't pop off and flip it into that. So, all right. So that's it for now. Let's see what happens. We're gonna tag 3K. We're gonna go lower. Who knows? But I'm sticking to my guns. I'm sticking to my strategy. I've got a single mind focus right now on this strategy. I'm just going to accumulate as much crypto as I can from my trading accounts. And again, I'm not taking anything that I pulled out of the markets. I'm not putting anything back in. So, and if things get really low and worse, then that's where I'll dip into some of my longer term Bitcoin holdings and I'll accumulate some, you know, maybe go into a slower accumulation or whatnot. So that's just me. You know, I'm just supplying the be bold when others are scared. And the market is the most scared I've seen it in years. I don't know if I've ever seen the market this scared since 2015. There you go. All right. So let's see. I think for me to want to sell this, I think I'd want to see... Maybe if it tags here or breaks this. Otherwise, if it goes higher, then here. Yeah, XTZ is on the Coinbase list. Doesn't mean they're going to add it, but it's on their list of consideration that they're looking at. So. All right, folks. And, you know, that maybe it'll be like 2019 or whatever when they list it. The one thing that people forget, we can be very impatient with stuff, is the ecosystem, the Tezos ecosystem, the network's only been live for a few months, right? Like what did Ethereum produce in the first few months of Ethereum? They didn't even have a graphical user interface for their bloody wallet. You know, the first year of Ethereum in 2015 was all like command prompt terminal shit for your wallet, right? Didn't even have a GUI, right? That was it. That's all they had, right? And it was like kind of like vape. And actually forget about that. In 2014, like for a year after the ICO, it was just vaporware. They didn't have anything. They didn't release anything. And then the first launch of it was super glitchy, right? Why did you accumulate so fast based on what you're saying now? Because I like buying, I like going hard when the markets dump hard. You know, my accumulation isn't necessarily ending. Eventually, when we find a bottom and we bounce, if I start locking in some stuff, then that's capital that I can use on another dip to continue my accumulation process, right? So it's not necessarily over just because I'm going super heavy. And when all this blows over, it's possible that my lower orders might not even get filled at all. We could bounce at any level. So I'm not trying to time or guess the bottom. I'm just, you know, I'm just buying as much as I can, and I'm making sure that I have nice orders in the really low degenerate areas. And then, like I said, all the Bitcoin that I bought in the 4 to 5K range is all stacked on really low altcoin orders. So that'll realize a tax loss when it gets converted from Bitcoin to alts. And then I can hold those into 2019, defer the tax, so on and so forth. And then if things bounce, some of it will be closed, locked in. Some of it will be closed back into fiat or Bitcoin, depending. Maybe I'll start just trading for the Bitcoin gains. And then I could just keep using that as dry powder. Or fiat, and then I can take that fiat to buy more Bitcoin dEPs. And then if it goes lower, take that Bitcoin as dry powder to buy altcoin dEPs. And then the accumulation cycle continues, right? Would it make sense to buy on the way up instead of on the way down? Wait for... Yeah, that's another... One could pyramid trade it too, right? So again, this is just what I'm doing. But one could also just wait for reversals, pyramid trade, wait for more confirmation, right? One doesn't have to just, you know, let's say we establish like a bear channel, like a new bear channel. What I would look for, so let's say we channel down to, let's just say we go to 2K, right? And then, you know, let's say it wicks and then it breaks this channel. We had a smaller channel break, but now we're creating a bigger channel. Breaks this channel. One could, you know, pull the trigger on the break of that channel. Obviously, like the stochastic RSI in the 1 week, well, like it's almost crossed. So this would probably curve up, and you start to see some green. Maybe you see like a reversal doji candle or something like that. And then as it's bouncing, and if your initial entry is a winning trade, you could add to the winner and pyramid trade it up on the bounce and then scale out a profit targets. So that's another way of playing it, right? Just kind of waiting for the reversal. Or if you wanted to play it the Hikanashi, one could wait till that turns green, right? So now we're creating a new channel here. And then let's say it breaks this line and it flips green, kind of like, you know, right here or whatever, or like right here, or like right here. You know, now if you see like a V bottom like that with a wick, buyer step in, turns green, breaks the line, you know, one can certainly. So that's another way of doing it too, and that's a little bit more conservative and maybe even more precise, right? So that's another way of doing it as well. And yeah, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with playing the more conservative route. I'm okay, like I've knife caught enough stuff that I'm emotionally comfortable with drawdowns when I knife catch. You know, I don't think I've ever knife caught something where I didn't start with some big drawdowns, right? Even here, starting at 8K. But again, that's just me. So obviously, as it goes lower and lower and lower, I just go as hard as I can with money that you know, again, never invest more than one can afford to lose. So this is money that I hedged out of crypto into trading accounts, into fiat, and now I'm putting it back into crypto. So, you know, it's just I'm just completing a cycle. So, and great, I get to own my own private keys again, hold my own crypto. So it's all good, folks. That's my plan and strategy. And I think if there's any time for me personally to go hard and to play this game, it's when the markets are at the lowest that it's been all year, and when everything's just completely collapsing and market sentiment's the lowest, and I'm just sticking with my guns. And, you know, so that's it. That's it for today's market update. We'll see what the weekend brings. We'll see what next week brings. See where the low is. We bounce here, bounce off of 3K, 2K, whatever. You know, if it goes down below 3K, then that's the lowest it's ever dropped in years, right? And of course, like we showed with shorts and stuff, that's not sustainable. You can't just like have shorts going parabolic, paying 1% interest a day. Something's got to give, right? So I'm mostly just playing the waiting game. I'm not trying to overanalyze anything. I'm just playing the waiting game. I'm just being very patient right now. Packing my bags and just being patient. Watching the show, actually. You know, I like these moments in the markets. It's kind of almost like historical, right? And then one day I might have a story to tell about it. So, all right, folks, that's it for now. Hope everyone's doing okay. Hope everyone has a great weekend. If you are feeling stressed out and stuff, then take a break. Don't just necessarily stare at charts or whatnot, or try to overthink things. You know, just try to enjoy life and patience, right? I'm just being patient. It's really the name of the game. So, and again, this is what I have been talking about all year, about the marathon and position sizing and not going all in and all that kind of stuff. And so now this is the moment. This is the final battle in the last scene of the movie or whatever. So let's see how this movie ends. We shall see. Time will tell. You know, but when I see all this and all this despair and stuff, sometimes I just tell myself, this too shall pass. Just like everything changes in life, this too shall pass. Just like everything was so parabolic and exciting last December, this too shall pass. Right? So, and of course there's no, and life is a cycle, seasons. And again, there's no guarantee it'll be a happy ending, but I'm putting in a valiant effort on that battlefield. All right, folks. Take care. I sincerely hope everyone's doing well, and I hope everyone enjoys their weekend. Cheers.